Ben's first.
The similar kind of discussion, but around disadvantage. I represent an area that's particularly what you might call disadvantaged, and there's a discussion around technology and AI in work in particular that's seen in a very negative light, and mine's top of the list in terms of jobs lost through automation and all of those charts. So I'm particularly interested in how we manage that gap. And looking through the written evidence, there were two things that came to mind. Martin, you pointed out the kind of infrastructure gap in terms of, we were talking before you came in about our own children and use of things like iPads and Alexa and things at home that not everyone will get. And I'm interested in how we manage that, or what the cost of managing that might be in schools. And Priya, you suggested that gap might not exist on your platform. We talk a lot in areas that, again, like Mansfield, where about working class white boys and not managing to reach the same academic standards. You suggested that you don't see that gap on your system. I wondered why that is, how that works.
So on our system, which was when I thought, okay, it's been worth £6 million to date, is that economically disadvantaged children perform exactly the same as their peers. And I have some of the top performing independent schools on my system, let alone sort of looking at the public sector. And that's because artificial intelligence doesn't care where you're from. It's going to learn what you do and don't know and how you learn it, and et cetera, et cetera. And then it's just going to basically personalise for you and then provide the right insights to the teacher. So if the child spends 20 minutes to an hour, let's say a week, 20 minutes on average, right, doing a couple of lessons for maths, English, maybe the sciences, the machine will figure out what they don't know in an instant. How does that traditionally work in a classroom without artificial intelligence? You test, you mark the test, a week later the child gets the test, a couple of weeks later, half a term later, you might figure out where the gaps are. And you've got to do this with 30 children in a class, 180 in a year group, 939 in the average secondary school. So that's why it helps immensely. We have schools in Wigan, for example, on our system where white males, people premium backgrounds, males are a real issue, and they are absolutely loving it. But it is a case of how we then champion these schools to ensure that the schools in Mansfield, for example, can then look at this technology and say this is something that we could potentially try and not be afraid of it.
It just comes to the heart, Martin, in terms of infrastructure. And
the infrastructure picture, DCMS local full fibre network programme has been rolling out connectivity to poorly served schools and using schools to anchor connectivity in rural communities. So that's a real success story. But the problem is when you get into the building, and we see from BESA, the British Education Suppliers Association, they do an annual survey, 2/3 of secondaries and 2/5 of primaries say we have inadequate infrastructure. We hear about 8-year-old PCs. I heard on social media last night from a college which is using 10-year-old PCs. So there's a lot that we could do, even just with a one-off capital injection to say, well, let's get everybody on a level playing field. You know, capital injection to pull cabling to install wireless access points to replace those 8-10-year-old PCs. And that, I think, will go a long way to creating the environment that the sort of innovation that Priya is talking about can actually prosper in.
Thank you. Do you guys have?
Yeah. So we ran 2 projects with young black men under Section 11, recruited all over there, and they'd all had experienced crime in their lives themselves, and were in a secure unit. So we ran a project where they created, right from the beginning, their own storyboards, their own subjects for game creation. None of them were violent themes. They all displayed incredibly creative ideas and attitudes that completely shocked their tutors. It's about access, really, as well. I think that's the main thing. And also personalising. If people are at different levels, as we've all said, artificial intelligence can alter and create different levels of adaptation for a group of 30, which might include people with disabilities or people from ethnic minorities in the same classroom, which a teacher can never do.
So I think if you look at the 4th Industrial Revolution, there will be more jobs, because of automation freeing up creativity, more jobs will be created than are lost. But that's not to say that no jobs will be lost. And if you look across the environment, particularly in some regions, you'll see that being place-based, regional disparities coming up. And so it's about how can government target the interventions in the right places to make sure that, say, the workforce of today is able to retrain and upskill or reskill in a completely new area. So what I would say is that, you know, the opportunities are there to be had, but it's about actually making sure that your interventions are targeted, and actually underlying all of that is the data. Do you know what skills are going to be needed for the future? Do you know what employers today are looking for and how you can cater for that? So I would say that, you know, artificial intelligence doesn't recognise where you're from, but it's about, it's about how does that person have the confidence to go out and learn again? You know, you're not talking just about in the schoolroom anymore, you're talking about throughout life. And often, even if there is brilliant technologies out there, it's about instilling confidence within that individual, or actually signposting them to those opportunities that are available. And that's where sort of government and policymakers come in.
I want to respond to the infrastructure point. We've got Syrian refugees in Lebanon using the technology on the mobile phone. So
we should be able to do it in months. Okay.